One of the things I want to start with, guys, is this: is education. Investment in education is an investment in your future. So today we want to thank you for your investment of your time. That's so important. You're giving us your time. So let's get started with some great information focusing on fine hair, problems and solutions. This isn't so much about learning a haircut, but let's talk about the do's and don'ts and the challenges that we have with fine hair. You know, what to cut and what not to cut, I think, is the most important things that we need to be aware of. 60% of North American women, they claim to have fine hair. Imagine that, 60%. Now, what's most important is understanding the areas of fine hair to cut, along with understanding the areas that should be left alone. In other words, don't cut them. Now, if you understand that, that's what's going to make you the hero and the go-to stylist regarding fine hair. And I think it's so important you understand what we can and can't do. Now, clients and guests are constantly searching for someone who can give them the volume that they are desperately searching for. And who doesn't want volume? You hear it all the time. So now, what am I talking about? I'm talking about specifically fine hair, because that's the number one problem, is I can't get any volume. Now, over the years, what we've discovered cutting fine hair is by simply detaching certain areas, we can create a sense of volume by simply doing that. So it's call it whatever you want, disconnection or detaching, but it's about detaching areas, disconnecting areas. That allows for more interior movement, which means you're going to have less weight, and it gives a sense of volume. And most importantly, a sense of texture with the volume solved. So before we start, I want you to think about something. Think about this. If we blend fine hair, we make it finer. So when we do that, if we blend it, we then cut the length to put the weight back into the perimeter. So we've got to be aware of that. So today, let's talk about how we would go in and create this seamless layered haircut that really solves the problem of volume. And it gives the illusion of looking blended, and it can solve those fine hair issues. So I want you to also remember something, and that is this: that product is not an option, yet it is a necessity, especially with fine hair. So let's talk types of products, tips, what, when, how, and why, how you would use those products, etc. And let's not forget about finishing tips. I want to show you a couple finishing tips. So here's my fine hair client. Look at that. Okay. Is that normally what we see with a fine hair, especially down here, down towards that? So this is a mannequin, and this is Diane. Look at it. It's got that fine texture now. Fine texture, it's really hard to make it spiky. All right. It tends to collapse. And a lot of reasons why is because the hair shaft contains three parts. What are they? There's the medulla. What are they, guys? Come on. Somebody type it in there. What is it? Type it in there. There's three parts: cortex, medulla, and what? Cuticle. Okay. So what's happening is when you think of fine hair, they're missing something, and that is the medulla. So therefore, they're missing a third of that. So that's why you have such a fine texture. So that's number one, what the client needs to understand. Their hair is what it is. So this is where we come in. Okay, cuticle, cortex, guys, thank you so much. And then you got the medulla, but what it's lacking is the medulla. Thank you, Amanda. Yes, the cuticle is one part that makes it up. So we've talked about that. Thank you, Kurt. We talked about that in regards to what makes it up. So the idea is to get the client to understand there's three parts, you're missing one. So let's take care of it. Now, one of the first things that I would always recommend would be, let's highlight your hair. The reason being is because it changed the texture of the hair. So we can alter the texture chemically, but then again, sometimes people or clients or guests cannot be chemically dependent because they can't afford a highlight. So they need to rely on us to salon professional in terms of the way that we're going to cut it. So first things first, how would I go in and adjust this perimeter edge? The fact that it looks so fine on this. Look at that. See that? And this is a client that doesn't want to cut her hair, and she doesn't want to cut it because she says it takes me forever to grow that. So that's what they're saying, is it takes forever to grow that. But what they have to understand is their hair is fragile. Even sometimes when they brush it, it tends to break. So they don't notice the growth. So number one, look at what I'm doing. I've got a client holding the mirror. She's looking in the mirror. She's seeing this for the first time. I'm holding up a black cloth, against a contrast of blonde hair. Create the contrast so they can really see this. So the idea then is this, is I'm explaining to her that if I trim your edge a half an inch every, let's call it 4 weeks, okay, hear me out here, 4 weeks, we stabilize this, and it has a blunt action to it. It looks healthier. Average growth of hair is half an inch a month. And she goes, no, I'm trying to grow it out. Okay, I want to see you every 8 weeks. And what we're going to do is you're going to gain an inch, but we're going to cut a half an inch so we maintain integrity and bluntness and strength on that ends. Do you understand the conversation I'm having here, guys? See, communication builds your wealth, especially with this type of fragile client, a client that has fine hair. If you're with me so far, just type a yes in there. Just say yes if you're with me. So this is what I'm talking about. See, I'm creating a visual experience already in the salon for the client, just doing this. In the old days, I'd be double, triple booked. I couldn't do that. Now I want you to take the time, use your communication skills, create an experience, and build your wealth this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in. I've talked to her. She's agreed to let me take the length up to a blunt point. So I'm going to take it to there. Then I'm going to see her every 8 weeks. She's going to gain an inch. I'm going to cut a half inch. Now she's gained a half inch. She comes in again 8 weeks. She gains another inch. I cut another half inch. So she's gained an inch, but it's an inch of integrity. I hope this is making sense. See, that's communication now. So how would you cut this? All right, let's start cutting. I'm going to work with our streamline, and I'm going to work with the 675. Now, this is quite different in regards to the artist series. The artist series, the handle's a little bit bigger. So if I put these together, you can see the difference in the handles. The streamline is a smaller handle. So if you're looking at something that is a smaller handle, a little more kind of small hand, this is the one for you, streamline. And I'm going to work with a 675. And yes, I'm going to use it on dry hair. So let's talk about something. What's so important to remember is when we're cutting this, I want you to notch or chisel the ends. Now, this is going to help to gather. That's what's so important. This gathers versus blunt ends. They tend to separate. Let me give you an example. Watch what I mean. See, if I cut this blunt straight across like this, that tends to separate. Do you see that? See how it separates? Okay, and it still has a sense of transparency to it. Okay, so it's not how short I take it, it's how I cut it. That's the point I'm trying to make here. So now watch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold that question for just a moment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to notch this. So watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to notch, 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 notch. Now, some of you are going, yeah, but Sam, you just made it finer. No, what I did was that angle gathers that angle gathers that, gathers that, gathers that. Now this looks more chunkier, okay? And it doesn't look so transparent and fine. Now, I hope this is making sense, guys, in regards to why I'm going in and notching it. It's because it gives it a sense of more weight. If you're with me so far, say yes. All right, let's see that question back up again, Kurt. Okay, Jaya, is it possible that the medulla disappears over a period of time? Hair gets finer over a period of time? Jaya, that's a great question. You know what? Honestly, I don't know the answer to that question. I wonder over age and over a period of time if it does because of maybe wear and tear. I don't know. That would be a chemistry question, and I'm not going to claim to be a chemist, but that's a great question. I would actually Google that, find out, see if you can find the answer. If you find it, share it with us. Now, I'm going to over-direct everything back to this, and I'm going to keep it a nice square line, but I'm going to continue to notch, 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 notch. And look at the points of those links. See how they're even as I go across. I'm going to bring her a little bit closer. Okay, see the notches? But the points are even. Okay, now see how that has a sense of more bluntness to it instead of me just cutting that straight across. Okay, so I think what's important is that I'm showing you something that's so simple as trimming the ends, but because the ends are fine, I want you to notice how I'm going in and trimming this. We're going to talk about a lot of other things in regards to fine hair. Look how I bring everything back. Now, one of the weakest points in fine hair is the front. This is the weakest point. Can somebody tell me why? Why is it that this is always weak here? You ever notice your fine hair clients, when they sit in your chair, they're sitting down in your chair and they're doing this. They're pulling all their hair forward. And the reason being is because they're so weak in the front, and then they're grabbing it going, please don't touch my length. It takes me a long time to grow it. But that's because they lost everything here. And it's just maybe, I'm going to say something here, but please don't take things wrong. I'm not saying this is you, okay? But what I'm trying to do is just create awareness in the fact that sometimes it is so easy to over layer fine hair. When we we think that we need to layer it to give it volume. I agree, but it's how you layer it. Because when we over layer fine hair, now it collapses more. And we're wondering why is it collapsing? And it's collapsing because it's over layered. So, you have to understand how we treat fabrics. And I've talked about this before. Now look at the difference in that. And I've talked about this in terms of, a fashion designer understands the limits and capabilities of the fabrics that they work with. So we must understand the limits and capabilities of the fabric that we're working with. And that's so important, guys, So now take a look when I do this. Now look how more blunt that looks. And see how when I just run my hands through it, see how the ends gather? That's what I'm talking about, guys, in terms of making this, having it so you notch or you chisel the ends to help gather. Now, Jesse Linares, one of our art team members, talks about how the angle, it did this, this, and this. So now all the layers it leans it that way. If you see that happening, come back the opposite way. So that what you're doing is you're actually notching it from left to right, right to left, so it gathers it more. Make sure you read the density for that. All right. If you learned something here so far on just terms of topping and just in terms of cutting off the length, I want you to just type the word length. Type the word length for me and let me know that you learned something there. All right. So now let's get into and let's talk about scenarios. All right. She comes in and she says to me, good job, Tammy, Sherry, Kelly. Yes, Jane. So would you recommend not blunt cutting fine hair? Jane, I cut that blunt. That was a blunt closure of the shears, so I cut it blunt. Now let's define blunt. Blunt is a blunt closure of the shears. What you're talking about, you're probably asking me about a straight line. So that's a blunt straight line. That's a blunt notched line. So what I don't want you to do is come in and point cut it. Now you're making it finer. I don't want you to come in and use a pair of texturizing reversible blenders. You're making it finer. So does that make sense? Tell me if that makes sense. I want to go back to that question, Kurt. That was a great question. Let's see. Go back to that question. Where was it? Okay, help me out, Kurt.
We're looking for it right now, Sam. You've had so many good responses on your question just a moment ago that we.
All right, I'll keep going. All right, okay, see if we can find that. All right, so and then I want to go back to Jaya. You're talking about is it even? Look, it as long as it balances, that's even. I think what we need to stop worrying about, guys, is if I cut this blunt like that, that's an even straight line. That's great, but did it solve the problem? What I'm trying to teach you is with fine hair, that separates. By cutting in and notching it, you're gathering the hair. Key word, guys, you got to get this. I'm gathering the ends more to give it the illusion of looking thicker on the perimeter edge. It's the easiest way I can say it. And remember, I'm not here to say I'm right or wrong or say that you're wrong. What I want you to start doing is think out of the box, guys. You got to start thinking about problems and solutions. Cool? All right. If you're with me, just say yes. Okay?
Hey, Sammy, Jane did ask this question of you. So would you recommend not blunt cutting fine hair?
Okay. Can you put the question up for me, Kurt?
Sure.
When you get that? All right, Jane. Thank you. All right. So Jane, I want to clarify that that you were the one I was talking to, love. All right. I cut it blunt. I'm not recommending that you don't cut it blunt. I cut it blunt, but I cut it blunt on an angle. So let's make sure we understand that. Look, that's the hair shaft. That's blunt. Whether I choose to cut the hair or a section on an angle like that, that was cut blunt. Now, if I do go like this, the hair shaft is hanging down and coming with the razor, that no longer is blunt. It's got an angle to it. Does that make sense? I hope that, Jane, tell me if that makes sense to you, my dear. Just type a big yes in there. I'm looking for that. All right. All right. Sabrina, you're welcome. I want to make sure everything's explained, guys. Now, remember, I'm not here to say that this is how you have to do it. I'm helping you. I just want to get you thinking out of your box. All right. Client comes in and she says, Sam, I want an angle. Okay. So she wants an angle. She's fragile about it. She wants to maybe have it start maybe at lip area. All right. Now, the problem with cutting these face frame angles on fine hair is the fact that what happens is we tend to make this area too fine. But what I want is I want some layering up here that's going to actually give this some layering, give it some action. So here's what I'm going to recommend that we do. let's work from a middle part. That's the easiest way to work with this. And the reason being is because it sets up your graduation evenly. So excuse me while I take a middle part. And what I mean by that, it sets up the layering on the top easily. Then after you've got that set, then I would recommend you come back and ask the client, okay, do you part on the side? Which side do you part it on? Then you take it from there. Now, remember, my goal here is to cut a blunt to get a face frame angle here, soft, maybe start at the lip, but I'm not going to pick all of this hair up like this, like I normally would on somebody that has a lot of density, and go in and do this. What happens if I do this, the hairline here gets too weak, especially in the front area. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a diagonal back section all the way back to center back. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to see where that diagonal section's at. Then once I'm there, I'm going to come back through on the opposite side. Look what I've done. See, I've done that. I'm going to come back on the opposite side and I'm going to do the same thing on this opposite side. So I'm in control and I can turn this one way and you can see, I'm just going to clip that out of the way. All right. Now, once I've got that, I come back on the opposite side over here. I'm going to do the same thing. All I'm going to do is just take it right where I started there, diagonal back to center back. All right. So what are you trying to do here, Sam? What I'm going to do, guys, is I'm dropping out the hairline. So I'm going to drop out the hairline. So I'm going to detach that so that I maintain the weight and the consistency that I need around the perimeter edge. Remember what I said when I asked you to think at the beginning. I asked you to think about, okay, if I blend this, I need you to really think. If I blend this, I make it what? Come on, guys. I make it what? If I blend this all the way through, what do? I make it finer. Absolutely right. I make it finer. So now, see, we were taught blending, but we have to understand that if I blend fine hair, you make it finer. Okay, that's important to understand. All right. See a couple questions. Jaya or Juman, do you recommend blunt with edge line with fine curly hair from 1 to 5? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Now, sometimes you might gauge it a little bit differently. It just depends upon density. But remember, we have this little saying, the ends need friends on curly hair. When you take the fringe away, that's when it starts to frizz more. So you got to be aware of that, okay? Jaya, how different is notching from point cutting? Confused. All right, notching it's all about point cutting is point cutting, okay? But the angle of how you turn it, see, if I turn it diagonal, that's more of a notch than me point cutting. They're both the same idea of point cutting. Don't overthink this. What I want you to really get is the angle. And so that's point cutting, that's point cutting, that's point cutting. Anytime you do this, that's point cutting. But what I gave you was an angle like this, so I notched it. I hope that helps you out. Okay. Is this technique better on wet or dry hair? Charlotte, I like doing this on dry hair, so I'll trim that edge after I'm done. Number one, I can gauge the length better. Number two, I can visually see the cutting edge. So I like to do the perimeter dry. If it's wet, it gathers too much together. You know, when hair is wet, it comes together more. When you cut it, sometimes you might take out too much. So be aware of that. All right. Notice what I did. Once I've got this all the way around, all I've simply done now is I've come through and I've put that in elastic. But now watch what I'm going to do. And I put that in elastic just so I can control this. All right. So I'm going to take my elastic out. Okay. And then watch this. I just need to clean up. Now watch what I'm going to do. I picked up a tail comb. Now I know this is my perimeter. So what I'm going to do, let's go on this side. Okay. Right here. What I'm going to do now is so that I get a nice diffused edge here, I'm going to work with a zigzag section. So what I'm going to do, though, is I know that I need to keep this weight. So I don't want to go too far down below this solid line. So see how I'm using a solid line to set up the balance of my zigzag rather than me just combing it back and say, I'm going to zigzag here. Okay. Feel that perimeter. I like that. Now zigzag this. So look how high I go, how low I go, how high I go, how low I go. What do you mean, Sam? I go higher above that solid line, slightly low below the line. So if anything, I'm going zig high just below the line, zig high just below the line. Okay. And this, by doing this, this is going to guarantee me two things. Number one, it's going to guarantee that I have the weight that I'm looking for. Okay. And now the zigzag is going to guarantee I get this seamless. Okay. Now we're going to do this on the opposite side. And I love working with zigzag sections. Crystal, would you do anything differently with a client that has fine hair and it's also thinning out? Exactly what I'm doing, Crystal, is what I would do. Okay. And then I'm going to talk about irregular hairlines, like, for example, here, receding here. What would you do there, Sam? So I want to talk about that. All right. Continue to move. Look how I'm just below the line. Just below it. Now look how I go above it, way above it. Now just below it, way above it, just below it. So see, I'm using that solid line as my guide in terms of how I'm zigzagging this. It gives me a good sense of balance, guys. So if anything I want you to learn here, it's this solid line, how I'm using this solid line as a guide to establish the balance of my zigzag in regards to how it sits balanced from left to right and how it sits balanced in regards to density. Okay, so that's my zigzag section. And now some of you are probably going, yeah, this takes so long to take the section. Number one, I'm teaching it, so excuse me there. And number two, it's worth it. Okay, it's worth it. Watch how this is going to save me time if I get this right. It's going to save me time going in and correcting things and trying to go back in and maybe possibly taking off more length when they don't want that much more length cut off. Okay, so that's my zigzag. And I've got that going all the way through. Notice that, look at me checking the balance of that. So that's all I'm doing, is just checking the balance of my zigzag all the way through. Now, once I have that up, now I go back to an elastic. Okay, and I'm take the elastic, coat this with a lotion before you put it on so it just buffers the cuticle so you don't have an indentation in the cuticle. Okay, or use the Samvia dry cutting clips, use those to isolate this hair back here. In this particular case, because I'm cutting a lot on the top, meaning I've isolated a lot on the top, I'd rather prefer to use an elastic in this particular case. It just keeps the clips out of the way. All right, I'm just going to continue to twist, tightens that up at the base right here. Now I'm going to loop through once. All right, now I'm ready to cut. Questions? Notching is chunkier. Somebody was saying notching is chunkier. That's exactly what you want to do, is create a little bit more of chunkiness to it. Instead of just cutting it blunt, guys, it separates and it just, you see through it, makes it more transparent. Remember, the key word there is gather. That seemed to get you guys, didn't it? Cutting it that way and gathering it. All right, going to move her in so you can see. Nina, who wants to cut my hair, my fine hair in Westchester, PA? Hey, there's a good salon in, let's see, Westchester. Oh, yeah, Jeffrey Herbertko. Check him out. He's in PA. Okay, but he's awesome and he knows a lot of this stuff. All right, now I drop everything I have up here. I drop it. All right, now I'm ready to cut. I'm going to work with a black comb on blonde hair so I have the contrast so I can see these lines. And remember, now what I'm going to do is this. Let's just go to the board and see what we've done. So what we did was we came in, we left the hairline out, I'd say about an inch and a half. And I came in and I took a solid line first. Okay, so I went like this. Remember, the key here in this exercise is I want to create volume. She's just looking for some volume. And let's say she even wanted to keep her hair long. She didn't want an angle. This is a great way to approach it also. Now, once you have that, then you come back through and you zigzag. Now, watch this. I went low below the line. I went high above it. Low below it, high above it. You see, I'm using that as a guide, and I'm going low below it and high because I want to throw more hair down than I want to take more hair up and away from the perimeter. And then I came over here, did the same thing. Low, high, low, high, low, high, low, high. Gosh, Sam, you're so aware of how you're even taking the zigzag section. You bet. This texture is so fragile, guys. Okay, from here, I went just below the line, up above it. Just below the line, up above it. Just below, up above it. You see how this is so cool in terms of just taking that section this way? It just really helps you to control and balance and place density where you need to place it. All right, so that's my section. Now, let's talk about how we're going to cut this. Look at the profile view. I want this to get some volume, and I want it to move back and away. So I'm going to take diagonal forward sections. Watch my sections, diagonal forward. Okay, now she's a fragile client. So I'm going to lift this up. I'm going to elevate 45 degrees. This length here excuse my drawing, will drop down. That's going to determine my guide. I'll drop it down to her lip. Then I'll come back in and I'll cut this parallel to that section. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start to take every section to that. When I get to the ear, I'll stop. So it looks like this. I'm divide front to back. I got a middle part. My sections are diagonal back, or excuse me, diagonal forward. Sorry about that. Diagonal forward, and I'm coming this direction, and I'm coming this direction. Okay. So now let's take a look and see how that looks. All right. Questions, concerns. Nina, who do you? Oh, Herbetko. Hertbko. Hertbko. He's a great Redken artist. Yes, Platinum Salon is the name. Sabrina, thank you. Platinum Salon is the name of the salon. And tell them Sam Villa sent you. All right, here we go. Let's cut some hair. All right, I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. All right, I'm going to give you a 3/4 view there. Now watch my sectioning. Okay, so let's divide front to back. Okay, you'll see why. Okay, let's divide front to back on this side. Just ignore the fact that you've got a zigzag section. Remember, you've got that zigzag section for a reason, to create a soft diffused edge. Sam, what are you doing? I don't like her part right here. So I'm going to work with ignore that zigzag and just skim that comb right across the top and get a true middle part. Remember, cut from the middle part. This will set up the balance. Then you can go side to side depending on which way they part their hair. All right, here we go. Now take a look. Okay, see what I've got? All right, now let's go. That's your 3/4 view. Let's start in the front, this front section. I'm going to go diagonal forward from that high point. Okay, now I'm going to elevate 45 degrees. See that? 45. Now let's talk about where my hand placement is. My hand will be placed right into that front area. Okay, so I'm looking, my hand, the spine of the comb, I come up, I'm cutting parallel to my part, but my hand sits right over her nose. See that? So it sits right over her nose. That's where I want to be. I don't want to be over here. I want to be right there. Okay, now I'm here. Now, once I'm here, her lip is my guide. So look how I figured out her lip area. Okay. Now, once I'm here, I'm up. That's my guide. That's where I belong. So I come back up to that, set the angle. Now watch me point cut. Watch how soft I'm going to keep this edge. And I've been doing this for a couple months now on a lot of this. Something I've discovered in lockdown is just being a little bit more aware of the angle of when I'm point cutting. Okay. So by being cautious and aware, look how soft I got that immediately. Now you're going, but Sam, this hair is fine. Guys, I got all my weight down here. All my weight's down here. Okay. So now I take a diagonal forward section again. Okay. Working my way down. Let me give you a view of it, the sections and how it looks. Okay. Here's my section, next section, next section. So I'm working diagonally forward down this front right side area. Second section. Okay. Here's my section I'm going to cut. Here's my guide. Okay. And now black comb with the part to the nose. There I am, spine of the comb. What do you mean, Sam? That spine right there over the nose. I know exactly that's when I comb straight up. If I'm not aware of that, I'm going to overcomb this. Now this side's going to get longer, seem longer. So you can comb on both sides, but bring that comb right to where you need to be. Look at the guide. There's my guide. You can see my guide. Now watch me just lay that down. I visually see my guide. Now watch me cut to the guide vertically with that shear. And like I said, I've been talking about this a lot lately. Now I have to do this on blonde hair, guys, because with blonde hair, you can see every layered track. You can see that. Now watch this. Watch how I'm getting an angle that moves from short to long. See how that angle is working its way back? I'll give you a profile view of that. See that? Look at that angle. Remember what I said from about lip, but then I got all her long hair dropping over this. You'll see how this is going to give her movement and give her a sense of movement and a sense of a little bit more volume and how it's working for her. Okay, let's go this direction. Okay, my last section now. So on this right side here, I took 3 sections. taking these 3 sections right to the center. Okay. Now, obviously, guys, this was not, looking for my guide, lay it down. Okay. This was not how I was taught to cut. But we discover things just like iPhones, you know, they keep discovering things that make them better. We keep discovering things in order to help us to work with different fabrics, different things that we discover. I can't cut everything blunt, you know. I mean, I can't cut everything with a razor. I can't cut everything with a texture shear. Now look at the angle. Look at the angle I got. See that angle? How that worked down? Now I've got her all at one length, long hair underneath that. Okay. If you're learning, learn. Joe Chesbro. Joe, nice to hear you. Jeff is at Glam. I'm at Platinum. Okay, Joe Chesbro is one that I highly recommend, or Jeff or Bertco. So who was asking, Sam, cut my fine hair? You either go to Joe Chesbro or you go to Joe is at Platinum in Rochester, New York. So he's not far from you. And then Glam, I think, is in PA, but I'm not sure. Joe, great to see you. And Joe, by the way, we loved your photo of those spaghetti noodles with the Samvia flat iron. I hope you saw. We posted in our feed, brother. Love you, man. Hope you're doing well. All right. Now, before we move to the back, let's move to the opposite side. So rather than cutting one complete side, guys, you know, don't go to one complete side. Your mind is in this area. So keep that mindset in this area, and now hop over to the opposite side. So I'm just going to move to the opposite side. Here, I'm going to take that front area that I'm working with, okay? And now I'm going to go diagonal forward. Now watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a slice of this guide that I have here, okay? This guide here, okay? Be aware of it. Don't pull any of this that you have there. Now see how I've taken that slice? Now look at, there's my guide. You can see that's my guide. So I took a slice diagonal forward, the right side of what I've cut. Then I took the left side of what I'm going to cut, and I married those two in the middle, and that gives me my angle of what I need to cut. Now, once again, I got to be aware I'm combing this too. That spine of the comb is so important. Joe, make sure you're teaching that in those mechanics of PVD. And those specialist classes that you guys are doing, those classes. So proud of you and Ann and how you guys are doing. Okay, now notice this time it's difficult for me to kind of lay it down with gravity. If you want to lay it down, move to the opposite side, lay it down and cut it. Okay, but make sure that you're aware. The most important thing here is be aware of that angle. Now drop that. I'm working with just this back area, my second section, picking up what I just cut. Okay, being aware of where I'm combing this to. Okay, so I want to comb this. So now, notice I've got a little bit of a tangle going on, guys. So I'm looking at middle, there, I'm there. Just lay it with gravity. You got it, tension on it, you're fine. Okay, relax your mindset to create a loose shape. Now, if I had a cutting lotion, Sam, what would you use on fine hair? Well, what I would do is I would use One United. But what I do with fine hair is I take One United from Redken and a water bottle. This water bottle is a small one. I pour a small amount of One United inside of that, and the rest is water. So it's probably a quarter of United, and the rest is filled with water. I dilute this. I don't want to take this completely on fine hair, but I still believe in this, the 25 different benefits it has. But I'm looking for something just to give me a little bit of moisture. So this is what I use if I need something to control it. If I'm cutting wet, this is my cutting lotion, water and One United. So that's what's great for fine hair in terms of a cutting lotion. Okay. And then I'm going to talk about products that I would not recommend for fine hair and products that I would recommend for fine hair. All right. So now can you see, guys, watch this. Look how I've been able to create that angle in this front area, moving this angle back on both sides. And then remember, what I've got underneath this, I have blunt hair. So if you're going, well, those ends look pretty fine. Remember, I softened those so I get more of a seamless diffused edge. That's why I point cut them the way I did. But now I've got that length underneath. So let's go to the back before we get too excited. Give you a profile view. Now here's the back area. Okay. Now in this back area, all I'm simply going to do is I'm going to split this in half. Okay. And then the way that I've been working is these are diagonal sections moving forward. So what I'm going to do is they were diagonal sections moving forward. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to continue the same thing, diagonal forward, diagonal forward, diagonal forward, diagonal forward. I'm going to move this all the way now to that side area. So this will move to the side area. So now this is where I stopped. Now look at this diagonal. Now watch how that's going to go there. That will go there. So my over direction here was to there. Everything here in the back goes to there. Everything here in the back goes to there. All right. So that's important. So let's go to the back, center back. Okay. How are we doing, Kurt?
Sammy, we're doing real well, my friend. You have an absorbed audience right now, my friend. So keep rocking it.
All right, great. All right. So now let me give you a view of the back. Okay. Now watch this section. Let me show you something. This is the angle I took. And I kept going down. Now watch this angle. Just go to the back. Here's the back. Just roll the comb. There's the angle. So can you see this angle moves to a diagonal forward? So the diagonal forward continues and pick up only what you need. Okay. So I'm going to pick up only what I need. That's above my zigzag. Diagonal forward at the ear. Look where I'm at. I'm at the ear. If I go here, it tends to throw too much length to the back. Now, when would you take this to a stationary guide, Sam, all the way to the front? I would do that if I'm very, very fine, very dense, and it's paper thin, then you better take this to a stationary guide so you throw a lot of weight and length to the back. Remember this. Anytime you want to leave weight or length, you move away from that. That's the simple principle of over direction. And that can be a side-to-side movement. Okay. Now, Sam, what? I was taught, this angle, this elevation, that's really a high elevation that you're taking there to the ear, Sam. That's a high elevation that you're taking there. Yes, it is. Okay. This hair is about a medium density, but that's fine in terms of texture and it's fine on the ends. Okay. But it's got the idea of where I can go in and I can elevate this so that I get that softness. That's more why I'm elevating it, because I know I've got one length hair underneath that. My last section, where's this going to? Type that into. Do I over direct it to the nose, or where am I taking this to? How far am I taking it to? Write that in there. Hi, Rosie. How are you? From New Jersey. Yes, this is Al. This is a great way to get a visual blend with fine hair. Okay. Now, where am I taking it to, guys? Nobody's answered that question yet. I want an answer. Where am I taking it to? To the nose, or am I taking it to the side area? Okay. Which one? Tell me. I just want to make sure you're with me. Ear. Yes. Thank you, Shirley. Absolutely right. Right to the ear. Look at how the shear is parallel with it. Look how straight I'm moving into it. And notice as you move, you'll take off those links. See those links, how they just popped off? Come back the opposite way. And I'm working with a 675. I want to go deep into this. I don't want to stay so shallow when I'm cutting this. Let's go to the opposite side. Okay. One thing, guys, if you followed me yesterday at Mannequin Monday, this is kind of a playoff of Mannequin Monday, but notice I'm cutting this a little bit differently. Yesterday, I was talking about how do you create volume? How do you create volume, and how do you create volume through cutting, and how do you create volume through finishing? And a lot of it was we explored disconnection. Here, we're disconnecting. I have to tell you how disconnection, or how I like to use the word detach. Let's detach an area. Listen to the communication. Let's detach an area of your haircut so we maximize your volume. We maximize your movement. Does that make sense? You see that? Now that makes a client think. I think the choice of words when we communicate to these clients is so, so critical in terms of how we communicate. Okay, lifting this right up. Okay, being aware where my spine is coming to. Let's give you a 3/4 view. Okay, being aware where it's coming to. Look how the comb, see how that comb spine sits right over that ear. Now at this point, once I get there, now I know I can turn that comb up and come up. Whatever reaches, I go after, or I come in if I see some bluntness, and I soften just a little bit more. Now watch this. Okay, let's go through. Let's take out the ponytail. And now watch the illusion. And look how I've got the length, how I've got my length. But now watch me just start to move that, and look at it move. Okay, see how that's just got some movement to it and how it's moving. But at the same time, let me raise her up. Look at her edge. Look how I've been able to keep that edge. Okay, if you're learning something here, say learn. Okay, this is important to me. Lauren, I have dense, fine hair. Would you take it farther forward as opposed to the ear? Yes, Lauren, most certainly. So if you're thinner back here, Lauren, that over direction point goes to the nose. If I want to release more weight in this area, take it to the ear. In this particular case, I took it to the ear because I wanted to release a little bit more. All right, looks like everybody's learning something here. Just a great way, guys. Now, if you say, okay, Sam, this is great. This is great. I love that. But now what about the angle around the face frame? All right, well, here's what I recommend, guys. Sell the client on this concept first. Just sell them on this first. That's what I would suggest you do, is sell them on this concept, then come back in. And once you sell them on this, then come back and say, okay, tell me what you did not like about it. Tell me what you liked about it. And then they'll tell you, then go in and adjust. Or maybe when they come back, they're going to say, you know what, Sam, I am ready now. I'm ready now for an angle, face frame angle. Then that's when you go in and do it. Sam, what did you just do? I saw a little bit of chunkiness in there, guys, and I went just in there and softly point cut it. That's the great advantage of dry cutting. You can really see things as you go through. All right, now let's go through now, and let's go in and let's create this idea of this angle here, but create it where it's got some weight to it. So I'm going to take a section just in front here, diagonal back, okay? I'm going to separate front to back. Let's do that. Stay in control, Sam. All right. Now, once I've got this, now watch what I'm going to do. I'm just going to separate that little horseshoe right there. Just knock that off for just a moment. You'll see how I'm going to do this, okay? Now, once I've got that, I'm going to go vertical, straight up and down. I'm going to move this forward, okay? And I know that I want this to have some length to it, okay? So I'm going to come through. I'm going to elevate. Now, watch what I'm going to do. Once I'm here, I want you to see my elevation. My elevation here is horizontal. So watch this, okay? So why, Sam? So I build weight on the perimeter edge. But now what I want to do is go in and create that soft angle around the face. So I'm going to go through here, vertical, straight up and down. I come through. I keep my elevation low. That's the length she has. I'm using that as a guide, and I cut vertical. Now watch when I release that. Look at the angle. See that angle? What's happening? It's just starting to drop back. I'll show you here. All right. Take a look at that angle I just cut. See that angle? See how it dropped back? Okay. Now I take another vertical section. I over direct to me. Now, if the hair was really fine, I would drop this down to a diagonal, but I would still cut vertical. Okay. By cutting vertical, releasing it, because of the way of over directing, that's what's giving me the angle moving back. Now, once I've got that, move to the top. So you see how this is different, the way it sits. It expands to the front, okay? Once I've got that, now continue vertical, okay? And continue to work this in. But now, drop this down diagonal. See that? Look at, here's my line. Look at me dropping that down diagonally, and I continue the same line. Why? Because I want more weight in this front, guys. Now watch. Look at how I'm getting that. See the angle? Okay. Sometimes we overlayer this perimeter. That's what I was talking about when I was telling you how clients will sit there and they'll be like pulling their hair to the front saying, please don't layer me so much, or I'm growing it out. They've just been overlayered. And this is what I mean. When you overlayer fine hair, that's when it tends to have a natural common tendency to collapse. All right. Now I simply come through and I work on the other side. Okay. Thank you, Corinne. Glad to hear that. All right. Yes, you Jaya. Yeah, I would use a texturizing iron. That's one thing I'm going to talk about when I go through and you finish this and you want some volume. Highly recommend you come in there and you use the iron. All right. Once again, up at where that vertical transition takes place, I want you to take a horizontal section. You'll come back and visit this in a moment. Okay. That's critical, guys. Now, if fine hair wants, let's just talk about a couple of scenarios. If fine hair wants to be longer, then it is best if it's long, smooth, and shiny. Okay. So then I would be using a lot of shine flash on that type of hair. So I get some shine. You don't think about what's in oil. It's going to weight it down. Don't worry about that. It's not going to do that. All right. What have you just done, Sam? I'm going to get a guide. Okay. So I need a guide for this side. So I've taken the hair where I'm going to cut right here. I'm going to bring these two together to center. I'm going to tip. Here's my guide. I'm going to elevate horizontally. That's going to be my starting point. But I think when clients say to you, if they're fine, they want their hair long, then understand, yes, they're probably better off one length, okay? And they're better off, the more that they can make it shiny, the better it's going to look if they want to keep it long. I think that is important, okay? So we've talked about that. Now let's talk about irregular hairlines, all right? I'm going to stay vertical on this, and I've got her pretty high. So just so I can get to this, I'm going to turn this way, okay? Now, the idea, there's that angle, okay? The idea also is if there's receding hairlines, meaning here, you want to go in and cut a fringe. I think a fringe would be a great way to go in and take care of that. And what I mean by that is you're going to take hair out of its natural fall, okay? So you're going to take it out of its natural fall, meaning that I'm going to go through and I'm going to bring it way back here, and I'm going to teach the client how to blow dry the hair here, forward, instead of it falling to its natural falling position. Normally, I might take a fringe to this point, but I want more hair so that you camouflage. So you're using a camouflage effect to go in and solve the problem. So that's what you would do with receding hairlines. Okay, how would you adjust the front layering from here for a side to part? Kimberly, what I would do is I would cut here from center first. This is what I personally like to do. I cut from a center part first. I put everything in. Then at the end, I come back in and I ask them, look at the points. Look at the points. That's the point. I took a guide from there and guide there. Now all I do is connect these points. And look at my elevation. It's diagonally down when I get to that front area above that vertical transition. So what I do is I go in. What was it? Gosh, that question. Oh, I hate myself right now. So much stuff going on this weekend. Too much teaching. All right. So what was I answering there, Kurt? What was I saying? I was saying,
Sammy, I'll find that question for us in the chat line, and I'll bring it back up for you, brother.
All right, great. All right. Maybe she'll come back in and ask it again. All right. All right. So let's see. I was talking about receding hairlines at one point. So remember, go back all the way back. And that's where you would go in and you find out, okay, receding hairline, you're going to take things out of natural falling position. Now I know what I was talking about. I was talking about that side part. So how would you handle that side part, that area that has a side part to it? You know, that where it's like I was talking how you put the graduation in evenly, just as I've done. And then once you got that graduation evenly, then you ask the client, okay, which side do you take your hair? Then you find out which side. Now you adjust that. So you adjust that fringe area, what normally might be a fringe area, adjust it to go the direction you want to go. Okay. I think that's the most and easiest way to go in and work with that. All right, cool. All right. Have you learned something here? Okay. Glad Sam's cutting is translating. Yeah, thank you for that. I hope it's translating, guys. Okay, side part. We talked about that. Yep. Okay, now look at what I've got. See how I got that little angle? Now, I'm going to let her play with this first. Then I can come back and I can readjust this angle and make it steeper. I find that with clients, with fine hair clients, take it slow. Don't jump into something right away. I think that's so important with fine hair clients. Then I want you to watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to come through now and I'm going to pick up a flat iron. And this is the new flat iron. This is a midnight blue. Look at that color. Absolutely beautiful. It's a midnight blue. Once in a while, we have a limited edition. So I'm going to work with a flat iron. But here's what's interesting about this. Let's talk about the finishing aspect of this. When I go through and I finish this, I want to be able to get volume, okay? Because that's what fine hair, the number one issue is volume. So when I have that issue with volume, right, and you want to get a smooth, polished finish, I want you to think about working with a round brush rather than a comb when you're flat ironing. So you get a little bit more bevel out of it. That's what I'm talking about, okay? Is you get more bevel out of it. So watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a little bit of Iron Shape 11, okay? I'm going to use this. I'm going to come through, and I'm going to miss the whole thing, okay? Just with this, okay? Now, I've only got time to just kind of show this to you on one side. But if you've had fun today, just write the word fun. Just write the word fun. If you learned something today, I want a big capital L. okay, with a big love sign, big heart, okay? All right, now watch. Once I got that, put the comb down. I've got my iron, and now I'm going to take a thermal brush, okay? And a thermal round brush is what I recommend for fine hair. A boar bristle brush is what I recommend from medium to coarse. Stop using your favorite brush on everybody because it conducts heat. Remember, you want to close the cuticle down. And this is an awesome brush, guys. Go visit our website. You can see this. Visit Salon Centric. But the idea is take a look at this. State, RDA. Visit all the Redken distributors and you can see this. But take a look at that. See the fine? So this conducts heat. So what I'm going to do is watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the area I cut here. Okay. And now all I'm going to do is I want bevel. Look at this. You see, I want bevel. So this is my source of heat. Okay. This would be me like with a round brush. But I want you just to take a look at, see the bevel, the roundness I got out of that? I want you to put the dryer down and pick up, because you cut it dry, pick up your, sorry? Who said I love it? Oh, gosh.
No one said it, but I would say it's been typed a few times in the chats, Mr. Villa.
No, it was Siri. Siri automatically said, I love it. I can't believe it. Siri, what are you doing talking about?
Your class too.
that was strange. I was like, where did that come from? All right. So look at, once again, bevel. With these irons, we have color treated and these edges are beveled. Okay. And also all I want to do is just get some bevel out of this. Look at, see the difference? Look at this side now compared to that opposite side. And then come back in like with Redken's dry texture spray 15, come back in with that, work with that, and work with your hands. As I said, I'm only have time to do this side. Now volume, let's talk about volume. Okay, look at how I'm getting that volume where I want that on that side area there. Okay, but what about the top? Now in the top, somebody mentioned already, I'd recommend using a texture iron. And you're basically going to use the texture iron at the base. Just bump it at the base. Okay, and once you bump that at the base, okay, look at that. Okay, once you bump that at the base, then come back in and work with your iron. So I'm going to take a texture iron. Okay, now all I want to do, and a lot of people think this mini crimping iron, but this is a great, it's called a texture iron because it alters the texture. Remember how I was talking about fine hair, how you recommend a highlight, and that's to alter the texture. They can't afford it. Sell them one of these. Okay, then all they're doing is they're going in at the base. And at the base in the crown area where they probably backcomb, this will eliminate the backcombing. Let's modernize your backcombing. It's beginning to look a little vintage. Okay, what's vintage mean? Ask them. And I guarantee the client's going to say old looking. Well, I don't know anybody that woke up this morning and said, I want to look old. Okay, so now let's just talk about this compression. Okay, anytime you're working with a flat iron, okay, look at that. Look how I got that bump. Anytime you're working with a flat iron, you want more compression, more pressure, you move your hand closer to the plate. If I'm working with fine hair, I'm out here a little bit, so I'm not getting so much maximum compression. Now let's take a look and see what this did. Look at what this did, okay, just by working with a texture iron. So now when I pull this back, look at what I got. You can just start to see that. If you see it, write C. Okay, then what I want to do, go through, and I just massage that. And all I did was put one in there. Now all this hair comes over it. Okay. So now what happens is now she's starting to get the volume that she's looking for. Okay. And it's soft volume. It's more like a kind of like a hidden volume in there. And the fact that I've gone through and just bumped this with an iron, with the flat iron, look at, you can just see the movement I'm getting now and the volume I'm getting on that one side. So, hope you had fun today and you've been able to really learn something. Once again, let's just talk about this. You know, in terms of color, some of you thinking, well, what about color, Sam? Well, I'm not a colorist, guys, but I will say this, dimensional color works best if you highlight and it adds texture, but the low lights will add depth. So I think, you know, color is a great thing to do. So talk to them about color. You know, if they're growing their hair out, you know, if they say, well, I'm going to grow my hair out. What happens is when they're growing layers out and things out, they tend to get a little fine looking in the front. Just teach them to tuck it. Tuck their hair while they're growing out. So they take the sense, the visual sense of fineness in the front. They eliminate that and they take that away. Okay. We talked about an irregular hairline. I think short hair, let's just face it, short hair with fine works best. So the shorter you cut it, it's going to work best, but not all of your clients want to go for short hair. So it's impossible, to go in and make them happy if they, you've got this. What I'm trying to do is just give you ideas that you can use. Okay. Remember, change the words in terms of what you use. Like, and when you're talking to fine hair, I want you to say, let's fatten up your hair. This product's going to fatten up your hair. So your hair feels more abundant. So it feels more abundant overall. And then the texture iron, tell them it delivers 2 times the volume. That's all you simply need to say. And then I'd retail those. Hope you learned something, guys. That was lots of information within an hour.